Why did the Rebbe often refer to the Frierdiker Rebbe as Nasi Doreinu, a practice we don't find by the previous Rebbeim?
There are many people who will, without hesitation, answer that the Rebbe's connection to his father-in-law was greater than the connection between the previous Rebbe and his father, and the Rebbe Rashab and his father, and so on. I just don't buy that. I just don't accept that. What is certainly true is that no Rebbe revealed the concept of his kashrus to the extent that the Rebbe did. The idea of neshama klolos, of a general soul, for which the whole generation feeds and nourishes, and it gets its flows, begashmius or beruchnis, like it says in Kuteterim Ba'aleischa, which the Rebbe brings in the Sichas, from the Nasi Doreinu, from the Reish B'nai Yisrael, which is a concept which is originally in Kabbalah, it's Narizal, and it's brought in Tanya in chapter 2. The Rebbe took it literally and to an extreme, and he repeated it and repeated it and repeated it. I think that perhaps you could say that in terms of the gilui, of the idea of what a Nasi is, I don't think that the earlier Rebbeim had a lesser appreciation for their Rebbe than the Rebbe does, because they were Rebbeim themselves. But there certainly was not nearly as much teaching by the Rebbe of the concept of Nasi Hadar. In plain words, the Rebbe expected everybody to do exactly what he says. He wouldn't take no for an answer. And of course, people have all kinds of explanations. The way the Rebbe would look at it is, this is Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu told you to do something. When are you not going to do it? What do you mean? Moshe Rabbeinu told you to do something. And it's not only a question Moshe Rabbeinu is smarter than you. Your chayas is from Moshe Rabbeinu. How are you going to cut yourself off from your own source because you're in a bad mood? The earlier Rebbeim did not reveal this idea as much. They did not prioritize in the derech HaChasidus the idea of his kashrus nearly as much. It was much more avoid the pnimius. In other words, the chassid's journey as a chassid was much more about where he was holding. And of course, there was always the relationship with the Rebbe, and there was always the loyalty to the Rebbe, and the love of the Rebbe, and the dedication to the Rebbe. But as I heard from my mashpiyim, it was not uncommon for a great chassid to say to the Rebbe, when the Rebbe would tell him to do something, ich halt nicht bei dem, I'm not ready for it, I can't do it. And it was acceptable. The Rebbe didn't accept no for an answer, because in our generation, the Rebbe completely exposed, took off all the masks of the concept of what a Rebbe is, what a Nasi is. In every generation is Moshe Rabbeinu. And Moshe Rabbeinu is Mutzah Machaber Anechi Eim Ben Avaya Lekechem Benechem Lahagi Lechem Es Dvar Avaya. Everything we have comes from the Eibishter through the Nasi Ador. And the Rebbe has the Sikh in Chelik Beis, which everybody knows, where he addresses the question of Hepech HaAchtos, and he says it's not Hepech HaAchtos. Because it's a Mutzah HaMachaber, it's a Mutzah HaMafsik. Whatever those things mean. In the earlier generations, the Rebbeim didn't talk this way. And the Rebbe demanded it, he expected it. The Rebbe couldn't understand how you can't listen to him. He Pashat couldn't understand how you can't listen to him. Not because he felt like he's smarter than you. Because this is your chayas. How could you not listen to the Rebbe? And I think that's the difference. It's hard for me, personally, to say that the earlier Rebbeim had a lesser concept of Hiskashus than the Rebbe. What is probably true is that they revealed the concept of Hiskashus less. And if you think about it, this is the ultimate gilui of Hasidus. Because Hasidus is about a connection to Hashem. And this connection to Hashem is by connecting yourself to the tzaddik. When you do what the Rebbe says, when you follow the Rebbe's lead, when you carry out the instructions the Rebbe gave in general, and specifically what the Rebbe calls your particular shlichus, you're makush b'ratma sein sof. And what can be better than that? I'll tell you a story. I'm waiting to come. I said, it's how do I say it? It's not exactly the point, but it's still a geschmack of ma'isa about a relation between a chassid and a Rebbe. I heard the story personally from Leibel Zisman, the Rebbe Leibel Zisman, and it's in his book, I believe. But I heard it from him in a Fabringen once when I was in the Five Towns, that he and his brother went into real estate, and they worked very hard. They were very honest, and they did very well. You read his book, you see that he he says that the reason he succeeded as a contractor, and so many contractors don't succeed as a contractor, is because he was honest. If he gave you a price and he lost money, he didn't change his price. And ultimately he became very successful. Anyway, he had a philosophy, him and his brother, and anytime they finished a job, they brought the Rebbe an offering, a gift of a considerable amount of money. This was their steiger. Anyway, they did a job, and they brought the Rebbe offering, as was their custom. And then they took another job. When they undertook this job, they had no idea how complex it was. Turned out that this job had been bankrupted 3 or 4 times. It had liens on top of liens on top of liens. There was such a mess. And there were so many violations. It was a disaster. So they didn't know what to do. So Label says to his brothers, let's bring money to the Rebbe now. Let's not wait till the project is finished. If the Rebbe asks, we'll tell the Rebbe that we're bringing it as insurance. We're taking out insurance. This project is very complicated, so we're bringing the money up front as an insurance policy that we should be able to get through the job. So they came into 770, they went to Binyamin Klein, and they brought him the money. And Binyamin looks at them and says to them, I don't understand it. You just recently brought this kind of gift, which was their custom. So they told Binyamin the truth, that they have this terribly complicated project with all kinds of violations, and they're taking out insurance. And they told him that if the Rebbe asks, they should tell that to the Rebbe as well. So Rabbi Klein walked into the Rebbe, and he brought in the money, and he said, this is from Berel and Label. So the Rebbe asks, and they just brought money in. So he tells the Rebbe what they said, that they have a very, very complicated project, and they don't know how they're going to manage to get out of it in a solvent way, so they're taking out insurance. And the Rebbe laughs, and he says, what a weird idea, what a great idea. And he told me that job went smoother than any job they ever did. In other words, miraculously, the liens disappeared and the violations were overturned, and everything just went smooth. The reason I'm telling the story is, what do you have in the story here? You have the Rebbe flip-flopping between Chassid and the Rebbe. He's a Rebbe, Nasi Doreinu. And a Chassid does something unusual to purchase insurance with his Rebbe. And the Rebbe, as a Chassid, laughs and says, what a great idea. In other words, the Rebbe was celebrating the chassidus of his chassidim, that they appreciated what connection to the Rebbe, to the tzaddik, to the Nasi Doreinu can bring to them. So I'm just sharing that story. It may not be a perfect fit, but it's a wonderful story to tell anyway.